Good to see all of you friends. My name is Uyan, a pastor of discipleship at Myers Park United Methodist Church, and I'm joined by my friends and my colleagues.
I'm Jessica Dason. I'm the pastor for Young Adult Ministries and Lay Involvement.
And I'm Pastor Taylor Barefoot, and I'm the pastor for Emerging Ministries.
So this is our week 2 of pre-recorded small group Lent series on the life of the beloved by Henry Nouwen. I hope that many of you are following along. You can see a link below our YouTube video in the description link that you can click to, or you can just go to Google, search, type in Myers Park UMC small group, and it'll direct you to the site where it has all the information of how we are connecting with the people of our community and the people of our church during these times when we might feel very, very isolated and alone. So we hope that many of you can join us through these times, through Zoom, through emails, through phone calls, through these videos together. So we are discussing the chapter Taken together, which starts from page 51. And I wanted to read this quote from Henry Nouwen. He writes, "To become the beloved, we first of all have to claim that we are taken. That might sound very strange at first, and still, to be taken is essentially in becoming the beloved." This is how he starts his chapter, and this is striking to us, striking to me, precisely because we live most of our young adult life, really most of our lives in general, so that we can position ourselves to take from the world, whether it be the things that we buy, take specific positions in the world, take specific people onto our lives. But according to Henry Nouwen, kind of the secret sauce of knowing ourselves as a beloved is actually to realize that we do not take, but rather we are taken, taken by the one who created us and made us. So what does that reality look like from day to day, particularly for perhaps young working people who are right in the thick of things in ways of producing, in ways of becoming someone in the world, to be somebody that is of worth? How does that play out, guys?
Yeah, just one clarifying question I don't want to miss. Did you say it was the secret sauce?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, so takenness is the secret sauce.
Yeah.
Just wanted to highlight that. But I think you ask a powerful question, Uyan, about, what does it mean in this world? And I know that for me, it came up in a time where you had to work for anything that you got. You worked hard in school. You had to do sports. You had to do the clubs. You have to do all the things. So kind of recognizing this belovedness as not something that is earned, but just something, that's grace, that is freely given to us, that is always there, no matter kind of what we do, no matter how we show up, when we show up. It's a different way of being, and I think it requires like an intentional mindset and just way of orienting our lives that is not really natural, and is quite countercultural if we really think about it. But accepting this kind of takenness, takenness sounds brutal, and Nouwen names that, but there's also this kind of determinative claim, even in that word, that I think is really beautiful.
And you just mentioned it's jarring because we live our lives to work to receive something, and by admitting ourselves to be taken, we're essentially saying the work has already been done for us when it comes to our belovedness. And that sounds beautiful and wonderful, but it is so hard for us to actually live into that reality.
Yeah. I think for me, when I was reading this section, I was realizing that my own desperate need to be, the toll that this culture of consumption has taken on me, and all the times when I haven't been chosen, you don't get the award, or you don't get into the college you wanted to go to, or you don't get the promotion, or whatever your experience of rejection was. I think for me, it's so hard to lean into that we are completely beloved by God, and we don't have to keep telling us those same lies of rejection that I know have weighed heavy on my heart and continue to be some of the deepest wounds that I've experienced, which just makes this book all the harder to read, but also the more liberating it can be.
Absolutely. So Henry Nouwen really uses that language of taken and chosenness together. And to your point, Taylor, we live in a world where when someone is chosen, it also then means, as a byproduct, that others are then excluded. Perhaps one of the easiest example is how we do sports. My son's in T-ball, and that's anybody's welcome to do T-ball, but as he progresses in his baseball class, it becomes more and more exclusive. You have tryouts, and people are chosen while others are then excluded. But when it comes to the chosenness of God in ways of our belovedness, Henry Nouwen writes on page 55 at the bottom of that page, to be chosen as the beloved of God is something radically different. Instead of excluding others, it includes others. Instead of rejecting others as less valuable, it accepts others in their own uniqueness. It is not a competitive, but a compassionate choice. That's one of those sentences where you just want to sit with it for a little bit. So what does that mean for us as Christians, as disciples of Christ, to be the church where we live into that reality once again, but also to teach that reality and to witness that reality to the people of our church and people in our community? You know, Jessica, you and I are parents. This is the dynamic that we're going to constantly struggle with when it comes to our children and the water that they will swim in for the rest of their lives. So what do we do with that? How can we share that good news of chosenness for all rather than living into the dichotomy of chosenness and exclusion?
Yeah. Well, I think this, you're hinting at this just fear of not being accepted.
Yeah.
And I think that, that is when we are honest with our true selves, when we are alone in our homes, in our apartments, and in those vulnerable moments, I think that's the core that many of us carry of this fear of not being accepted. And to have this radical acceptance is just, it's hard to accept. And then I think there's so much just fear that keeps us from that. So really, I think it's a question of how do we dismiss this fear, dismiss these lies, these just mistruths that aren't the good news of God and aren't this radical acceptance and inclusivity that is God's love. So it is one of those things where I think it boils down to God is so mysterious of how this works and operates in the world, but that's one of the beautiful things is that, everyone is included, everyone is accepted just the way you are. Every single child is a beloved child of God. And that's just, that's what gets me jazzed about God.
And equally chosen.
Yeah.
Right? It's not that all of you are welcome, but you are all of you equally invited. There's an equal place in God's house for each and every one of you. And that just goes against everything that we've worked so hard in life to attain. So on page 59, at the bottom part of that page, and actually throughout that page, Henry Nouwen writes, you have to keep unmasking the world about you for what it is: manipulative, controlling, power-hungry, and in the long run, destructive. And in order to continue to remind us of God's reality apart from the world's demand of us, Henry Nouwen writes, you have to keep looking for people and places where your truth is spoken and where you are reminded of your deepest identity as a chosen one. And here we come down to the importance of community once again. I think the role of community and the life-giving truth of God's beloved community is woven through this book in his message, that none of what he is advocating is possible in a vacuum as an automaton, but rather it is only possible when we are able to do this together, that we need to remind each other of this God's reality in our lives. So in that way, Taylor and Jessica, we like to think at Myers Park United Methodist Church that we are very intentional and we do our very best to provide opportunities, whether it be fellowship, whether it be studies, whether it be worship, to remind one another that you are beloved, you are chosen, you are already taken by God without having to do anything to earn that chosenness.
Yeah.
I think one of the things I appreciate about the Christian church in a lot of religious communities is that it is one of those places that you do get to walk into. And I think we were all so sad when small groups ended because I had the opportunity of walking around the table with a bunch of people who had never met each other but had been worshiping at various services and were a part of this Myers Park community, and had the courage to say the things they were afraid of and to say those hard things, but being met with compassion and a sense of belonging and being reminded that they're not alone in those pains. And I think right now we're not around each other, and so we have to ask that question of how do we keep doing that. I was gifted with being able to FaceTime some of my close friends in Michigan yesterday, and they're medical professionals, and we spent some time talking about what they're hopeful about and also what they're afraid about, and it was one of those moments of honesty but also connectedness that I wouldn't have had if this hadn't been happening, because we live so far apart from each other. But yeah, I'm holding on to that, because like I said this on Sunday, like we need each other too, because it is a scary time.
It is. And I think maybe the first step is to simply name that.
Yeah.
For many of us who have a difficult time naming that we need one another, I need you. We will do our very best to stay connected with you, whether it be the people of our church and the people of our community. It won't be perfect, and it's still an ongoing thing that we're trying to figure out and discern for ourselves, how to do that well with y'all and how to do that well with one another. These are unprecedented times, but please know that it's absolutely okay for you to reach out to people to say, man, I really need some help. I need you to talk to me. I need you to listen to me. I need you to pray with me. In the midst of all this, let me just end with what Henry Nouwen writes in page 60, the last paragraph. He writes, you have to celebrate your chosenness constantly. This means saying thank you to God for having chosen you, and thank you to all who remind you of your chosenness. Gratitude is the most fruitful way of deepening your consciousness that you are not an accident, but a divine choice. We must find ways to give thanks, to have grateful hearts now more than ever. And I don't know what that will mean for you in your lives, but I can tell you I'm grateful for so many things, one of which is, and this is really at the top of my list, grateful for family of God. I'm grateful for my biological family, but I'm so grateful for the family of God, who remind me of my chosenness, of our chosenness together, who encourages me, encourages one another, who forgives each other. And guys, I know that we cannot be together in bodies, but we are together in spirit. We are connected through prayer. We're connected through the one who made us, created us, who sends us. This is our communion liturgy which we cannot do at this time, but that we are one body. We are connected for no other reason than that we are made by Jesus. Peace of Christ be with you all. Please reach out to us, and we'll do our very best to reach out to you. God bless you. Thank you for being with us today.